All right, welcome to your Characteristics of Life, or COL Flipped Notes. So we're going to be looking at the characteristics of living things. In case you forgot, a characteristic is a trait, and an organism is something that's alive. So it could be a plant or an animal. Actually, it could be a fungus or a bacteria as well. Those are also organisms. All right, so first, a little vocabulary. The word abiotic means not living. So things like water, soil, air, minerals, and light. Those are abiotic factors. And I would write those down in your notes, or at least one or two of those as an example. The term biotic means living. So just like bio means life, biotic, living. And that includes your plants and your animals, your bacteria, your fungus, and your protists. So again, I would write down one or two of these as an example. All of them would be better. So what we're going to look at with the characteristics of living things today is what makes these things alive. And so the current list that we're going to go over has 7 characteristics on it. And, it's very hard to define what makes something living. We can all tell, yes, this is alive, no, that's not alive, but actually narrowing down those characteristics is very, very hard. So you will see different lists. They all basically have the same thing, but sometimes you'll see a slightly different list. Some lists only have 5 characteristics, some have 7, but usually that's what you'll see, 5 or 7. So here we go. All right, the first one is organization. So that means it is composed of cells. It could be unicellular, which means it has one cell, like a bacteria, or multicellular, which would be like a dog or a tree or a human made of many cells. So hopefully you remember this, but cells you are made out of cells. And so the way that level of organization works is cells make tissues. And so there's epithelial tissues, connective tissues, nervous system tissues, muscle tissues. And those tissues, when you put a couple of those together, it makes organs like your heart, your lungs, your stomach. And then your organs, you put organs that work together, they make systems. So like your digestive system, your respiratory system, your cardiovascular system. And then when you put your systems together, it makes up the whole organism. So again, living things are composed of cells and they are organized in this manner. The pictures down here, this is just a generalized animal cell, and I know it's an animal cell because it has a cell membrane and no cell wall. These right here, this is a real microscopic picture to the left. This right here is a red blood cell, which if you go all the way over to the right, that's what it looks like in color, and that's what gives your blood the red color. These are white blood cells right here. So these are the ones that fight against disease. Sometimes things do go wrong, and these are red blood cells that are not doing so great. They've collapsed in on themselves a little bit, and so different diseases can cause that. In this slide right here, I'm going to play it for you in a second, hopefully. This is going to be a white blood cell right here. So this is a white blood cell called a neutrophil. And this little guy right here is a bacteria. It's actually Staphylococcus aureus, and that's what causes a staph infection. That can make you very, very ill. It can actually cause different diseases and could ultimately kill you if you are not taking care of that. So you're actually going to watch this white blood cell chase around that bacteria in order to kill it. Or not. I hate when it does that. There we go. So again, your white blood cells, their job is to go through your body and get rid of the bad guys. So they are your army. As you can see, it is definitely going through other cells, trying to get that bacteria. Characteristic number 2 is metabolism. And so what that actually means is you go through a lot of chemical reactions throughout the day. So it's consuming energy. So if you look at the picture on the bottom left, it's kind of, part of it's cut off, I know, I'm sorry. But as you eat food, you eat proteins, you eat carbohydrates, and you eat fats or lipids, your body breaks that down. So this one on the right, food intake, breakdown. You create energy from that because it goes through a process called cellular respiration, where you are making ATP, which is your body's energy. That's what we use. And so that ATP, so that's consuming energy, or consuming and making your energy. And then you use that energy for body repair. So anything that your body needs, extra immunity, immune cells. If you work out, you need to repair some of that muscle tissue. And then also for activity, moving around, exercising. So metabolism is anything you see that has to do with like eating or working out, using energy. So it's consuming and using energy. And what metabolism actually means, it's the sum total. So you're adding together all of the chemical reactions that happen in your body. That's what metabolism is. So what you take in, what you expend. Okay? So metabolism. So I would include movement in here. So again, eating, using energy, movement. Characteristic number 3 is something called homeostasis, and that's maintaining a stable internal environment. So you're going to hear this term a lot in biology and anatomy as well. So one example that is used quite a bit is your body. It likes to stay at a temperature, usually about 98.7, give or take. Everybody's slightly different. So when it gets too hot, you start to sweat, so that cools down your body. When you get too cold, you start to shiver, and that's actually your muscles using energy, which lets off heat, to warm you up. And that's what keeps you at that constant temperature. Again, if you're sweating a lot, you drink more water, you become thirsty. You're trying to maintain a stable internal environment so that there's a very small range. It's not a fixed point, but there's a very small range that is considered normal. And you want to keep your body within those normal ranges. Here's another example of the eye. So you have your pupil right here. The colored part is called the iris, and that is actually a muscle. And so we're letting light in and keeping light out. So when it's dark outside, you want to let more light in so you can see a little bit better. And so it dilates, or looks like the pupil's getting bigger. It's actually this muscle's getting smaller, and you just see more of the pupil. And then when it's really bright outside, it constricts it. So you see more of the iris because it got bigger, and the opening to the pupil is much smaller. So that's another way to maintain homeostasis. Characteristic number 4 is growth. A lot of times you will see this as growth and development because things do change as they get bigger, as in this picture. It starts off as a seed, then a bud, then a plant. So it's not just growing, but it's also developing. It's changing. So individual cells get bigger, and then you also get more cells through cell division. So these are some pictures. This is a cell almost done dividing, and then this is a cell just finishing, and so it's just got one last little bit. And that's how you get more cells within your body. It goes through something called mitosis, which is cell division. It makes an exact copy of itself. And that's what you want. You want an exact copy. You want all your skin cells to look the same. You want your liver cells to be the same. Next, we have reproduction. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this word. The reason why is to create new organisms, because we do have death in this world. We need to have life. So there's two types, sexual or asexual. So all of our little babies here, we have a little baby tortoise, little baby bobcats, and little human babies. That was created by sexual reproduction. So you need two parents and two different sets of DNA that will come together. And then you have asexual reproduction. That happens in, usually that's mostly bacteria. So it's called binary fission, and it actually kind of splits off into two. And then it can also happen in some types of plants. So as you can see with the strawberry plant right here, you have the main plant and you have a little runner that goes off, and that kind of implants it and it develops a new plant. Okay, so that's asexual reproduction. Only one type of DNA here. Sexual reproduction, two types. Characteristic number 6 is response. So that means that the organism responds to stimuli or changes in their environment. So usually the example I give is when you step on something sharp or you touch something hot, you immediately move your hand or your foot. So plants do the same things. So some plants will actually respond to touch. So you can see when they poked it with the pencil, the leaf actually folded in on itself. When a plant senses sunshine, it will grow in that direction in order for photosynthesis to happen. Many animals, including our invertebrates, which means there's no backbone, if you touch them or poke them, they'll curl up in a little protective ball. So they are wanting to, or they're responding to the stimulus. Plants will grow their roots towards water. If you see something or hear something, that could make you respond a certain way. So that's responding to a stimuli. And the last one is evolution. And so you have what that means, and we are going to be looking at that later on this year. But genetics, the actual genes or the DNA of a population, so this is a group of organisms, may change over time. And then that could lead to better survival and reproduction in a particular environment. That's called an adaptation. So one of the most famous examples is the finches here. So they all have different beaks, and that went from they were on different islands, and so the food sources there were different, and so they slowly, the ones that had like bigger beaks, those were the ones that survived on the islands because they could get certain seeds. But this one was like nectar, so it needed a smaller beak. Giraffes have a tongue, so they have a lot of adaptations, but the one I'm going to talk about is the tongue. They have a really, really, really long tongue, and it doesn't have as many nerves or blood vessels in it because they like to eat the leaves off an acacia tree, and acacia trees have really, really big thorns on them. So this allows them to not poke their face, but they can just kind of reach in there and grab with their tongue, and it's not a big of a deal because they don't have the nerve endings or the blood vessels in their tongue or as many to where if they prick it, it won't hurt as much. A cheetah over here has lots of adaptations. It's one of our fastest land mammals. So like one of it is the tail's used for balance, spotted coat for camouflage. It's very heavily muscled in its legs for pouncing or running. It has expendable claws. So most of you are familiar with like house cats who can make their claws go in and out. Most of your large cats cannot retract their claws, but the cheetah can, and that helps them hunt and climb. It also has powerful jaws. It has eyes with a tapetum lucidum. Actually, a lot of animals have that. That's what makes their eyes kind of glow at night. That enhances their night vision. It also has a stronger heart. It has a smaller head. All things that help it run faster. And that's it for our characteristics of living things. Again, there's always an exception here and there, like the mule. That's where the mom's the horse, the dad's the donkey. Mules are considered living things, but they can't produce baby mules. The only way to get one is through a horse and a donkey. So again, you will always see some exceptions and a list that will change slightly, but with these same basic things there. Thank you for listening.